Take it away, Matt.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us and being a part of this chance for some learning and some sharing. And gosh, I'm so excited to have this space. We are, I'm saying we, there's several of us on this call who are part of an organization called the Neighboring Movement. We are based in Wichita, Kansas, which is almost exactly in the center of the United States. Wichita is a city of about 300,000 folks. We have been practicing asset-based community development in our neighborhood for about 5 years. It was when we first discovered it. And our primary expression of asset-based work is encouraging people to build relationships with their literal, actual neighbors. And so we're gonna share some of what we have found, but also we're excited to have some times and some blocks when we can hear from you all and we can learn together. So we're excited for that. And yeah, again, just really want to welcome you and encourage you to, I guess, make yourself at home as much as you can in Zoom, using the chat,
They
waving
literally
hands.
are at home, Matt.
Oh,
They don't
yeah.
make themselves at home. They are at home.
Okay, well, so great job, guys. Let me just congratulate you on making yourselves at home. How about that? I want to take a minute to introduce the other folks who are part of our team. Some will be sharing in other times, and some are just providing some support to us. So along with me, I'm one of the co-founders of the Neighboring Movement. Along with me is Adam Barlow-Thompson.
Hey, everybody. Good to see y'all.
Christopher Swanson.
Hello, everybody.
Lydia Rodriguez.
Hiya.
Sydney Rowe.
Hi, guys.
And Karen Rice Ratzliff.
Yeah, great to see you all.
Adam, do you want to kind of give them an overview of what we're going to cover during this time?
So we are the Neighboring Movement, and that makes our focus really about the people who live closest to you. And our understanding of asset-based community development starts with your actual literal neighbors, the people who live closest to you. And so we're going to be doing, for the first half of the call, well, we have no clue actually how long this will take, but we've scheduled kind of two halves. In the first half, we will be asking you to actually consider who your neighbors are. And it'll be very interactive. Like, we're going to actually ask you, if you can, to move around a little bit. Not everybody, maybe your computer's connected to a wall that you can't get away from, and that's totally okay. But the way that it'll work is we'll kind of introduce a thing that we want you to do, an activity that we want you to do, and then we will ask you to move around and go do that actual thing. And I saw at least one person, Joel, has been listening to The Neighbor Next Door, which is our podcast that we have, and we really enjoy doing. And so Joel at least knows that I play a lot of banjo, and banjo is my key instrument. And so when we are asking you to go do something, instead of having like that awkward moment where we say, everybody go do something, and then the Zoom call is just kind of like quiet and bland and not interesting at all. When we ask you to go do something, we're calling it a banjo break. And I have the first banjo on the global ABCD call, right? And so I'll be playing banjo for you. And if you hear the banjo playing, that means that there's an action that you need to be doing, and it'll be in the chat window. And so if the banjo is playing, check the chat window for the action that you need to be doing. And then throughout the call, by the time we finish that first half, you will have actually created a block map and started to think about how you might connect with your actual literal neighbors wherever it is that you live. So that's kind of the first half. The second half of the call will be more about how does this then build community beyond the people I live with? Like, as we think about bigger structures outside of our actual literal neighbors, how does that expand outward? How does it build power in a community? And how does that power get used or spent to help the community be strengthened? So that's kind of what we're looking for in the first, in our call. So to get us going, we wanted to set some ground rules and kind of some expectations on how to use the Zoom call in the community here. So Matt, I'll let you introduce those.
Thanks. So, we don't really know each other, and we're coming together in this space. We want it to be a good environment for learning. We want it to be a safe space. There's a lot that we could say about that. There are just a couple of key points that I would name and request of us as we share this time together. So a couple of things I think really help in creating some safety. The first is that when we share, we ask that you speak from your own experience and speak about your own feelings. Using I statements is a great way to enter into conversation. Also, something that I really try to work on is to listen in order to understand. So as I'm listening, not necessarily weighing out my agreements or disagreements, but first and foremost, seeking to understand what's being shared by presenters and other participants in the call. Another thing that's really important to me is that all of the activities that we'll ask you to do are totally by invitation. You don't have to do anything. And that includes that throughout the time, we'll invite you to join breakout rooms, but you don't have to, right? So I just want you to know that if, particularly because this is a 2-hour stretch, if you get to a certain point and you're like, I know there's a breakout room right now, but I'm not gonna do it, I'm gonna go get some coffee, or whatever you need to do to take care of yourself, we want to encourage you to do that. You know how you're feeling and what you're feeling at this moment much better than we do. And I think just an overarching for me is the invitation to approach one another with civility. So as what is shared, and knowing that we live in very important and difficult times, I think to dialogue with civility, which is not necessarily just being bland and nice, but still honoring the humanity of those around us. Now, there are a couple practical things that I also wanted to mention, just to give you some ground rules. One is that we do ask that if you are not talking at the moment, that you mute your microphone. This just helps cut down on interruptions. And if sometimes I've been on calls where people unmuted themselves and they didn't realize they had done that. So if that happens and there's some background noise coming from you, there may be one of us may go ahead and just mute your microphone just to cut down on that distraction. Also, I wanted to just give you a word of warning. Something I learned by preparing for this presentation is that if you privately chat with people, the presenters at the end will actually have access to those private chats, which I think makes the word private misleading. Also, it means, if you want to say bad things about us, maybe send it through a text. So, although, yeah, I'm sure you could say anything you want about the banjo, and Adam has already heard it. So if you have personal comments about that, you're probably
anything you say about the banjo, I will spin into a compliment. So it's totally fine.
Yes. I guess the only other thing I want to point out, and I know some of you have seen it, we've got the chat feature. So we'll be using that throughout. And I'll just post right there so that you can see down at the bottom of your screen. And there will be times when we ask you to share there if you would like to. And we will also, like I said, be using the breakout rooms. And if the technology works out, we might even try offering a poll at some point. So we'll use some of the features. They may not all work, but that's okay. I think overall it's going to be a fun experience.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we don't want you to think that it's going to be just listening to us. So we want you guys to be able to talk to each other. So we're going to go ahead and utilize the breakout rooms right off the bat here. And we're going to create some space for you to share. And we want, I'm going to post in the chat window the questions that you can share. And so if you could talk with somebody when you get into your breakout room, and these questions will still be in the chat window, by the way, when you get there. Your name and your location, something you're passionate about, and what attracted you to this session. And we'll give, Christopher, let's do like groups of like 3 or 4, if we could. And then we will give you about 10 minutes in the breakout rooms to have that conversation. And so Christopher is going to set those up, and you can go ahead and start opening them when we're ready. So once those come up, when he opens it, you'll have to say yes, and that will then you'll join the room once you say yes. So we'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay, things going all right. I feel like everybody good.
So far, so good.
Awesome. All right, Matt, you want to lead the regroup, and then I'll lead the action?
Yeah, that sounds good. So, and in the action it says get writing. You mean like get a writing utensil, paper?
Yeah, it's really the sentence underneath it.
Okay.
Get something to write with, and be in a place where you can see your neighbors' homes.
Okay.
Or at least use the break to go look out the window.
Do we want to give them about 5 minutes for that, or longer?
I mean, that one's not a super long one. It's just literally like gives them a chance to move. And then in the next one, they would need maybe a little bit longer. Okay. So. Since you guys are in the main room, you just want some like special banjo time?
Where's that mute button? I think I saw somewhere on the audio settings.
That's not how that works. Not how that works. I'm gonna go get my tuner real quick though.
Oh,
I'm the host,
do.
so I feel like I have the power to just mute him, right?
I think you do, actually.
Boom. It's unfortunate. I did the automatic. It's unfortunate because you can't prearrange. I was playing around with doing the manual breakout rooms. So I could just try and put one, at least one of our staff members in each one. But you can't do that ahead of time. You have to like hit set breakout rooms and then do that. So I didn't realize that, but now, I mean, next time I could do that, but it's only unfortunate because like breakout room 6 got both you and Adam in it. So there's only 2 other people in that room, but I'm not going to pull someone else now though, since they've already like met each other, but.
Right.
So yeah. That's kind of unfortunate, but I didn't, it's confusing how it's done. If you choose, whenever you choose either automatic or manual, and then you say, go to breakout rooms, but then it doesn't actually do it yet. It shows you the list first before then you like for sure do it. And I thought it would for sure do it before that. And so I didn't want to send people into breakout rooms accidentally, but now I know that we can do it ahead of time. You just have to hit that button and know that it's not going to happen automatically.
And you can like exchange people in the rooms.
Right. Yeah, I see all of that. And right now it's a good spread except for that breakout room 6. So maybe for the next one, if we get any more added people, I'll add them in that one for sure. And a couple people didn't join. But.
How's the banjo sound coming through there?
Sounds like a banjo.
It sounds good.
Yeah. It does a little bit of that thing where it kind of pushes it underwater.
Uh-huh.
You know, but not much, just a tiny bit. Okay, so on their task, we're asking them to get something right with, go to a place where you can see your neighbors' homes, or at least use the break to go look out the window. And then are we asking them, is it then that they take time to notice things that they usually miss? Or are we asking them?
It's currently set up as first just move and gather supplies, gather a piece of paper and something to write with and move. That's the only thing you have to do to start with. And then they come back and we say, okay, so now you're in place. Now we want you to observe your neighborhood and start thinking about things you usually miss, which we could do the poll then or later too, actually. I think the poll.
Do you know how it's launched?
The poll?
Yeah.
I think any of us can do it now. If we hit relaunch polling, I think it would start it again.
Okay, I was gonna say, because it's like close. Okay.
Yeah. I think actually the poll, we could use the poll before we do the block map actually.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I did not pay attention to what time they went into these rooms.
I didn't either. I was just thinking about that. I was like, dang it.
Probably getting pretty close. Should we give them a 1 minute warning?
So I like to do a 2-minute warning, Christopher. You can do a like broadcast.
Okay, I see that. Okay.
And then just type in 2-minute warning.
Cool.
Send that to everybody. And then once you close the rooms, it does the countdown, the 1 minute countdown.
Cool. All right. I think it broadcasted.
2-minute warning. I got it.
Cool.
I think you can close them whenever you're ready, Christopher, now.
All righty.
We'll just wait a second as the rooms close here. All right, I think we're back.
Great. Welcome back. So I think it's really key for us. We would love to hear from you guys as far as what attracted you to this workshop, to this session. And there's enough of us on this call that probably using the chat would be the best way. So if you'd be willing to post in the chat for you what drew you to this session, and we will be attentive to that as we continue on through the rest of this time. So what attracted you to this session? I guess it's unanimous. Everybody just is thinking banjo.
Banjo. We got Joel says, in person is where the best magic happens for me, especially when it comes to ABCD. So I get the chance to learn from other people who get it, like me, like we do. I'm in neighborhood organizing, block parties, community projects that brings neighbors together. Wanted to learn more practical application of neighboring and ABCD. Connect with organizer neighborhoods by community. Learning more ideas, especially with the pandemic and the orders to stay at home.
Someone in a new neighborhood.
They're going so quickly. This is great. I love that there's in the chat though, because we will harvest all of these. As we know, we must harvest during this thing here. Doing research at the Cody Institute and currently working on Brianne Peters, Carrie Lynn and Paul and Audrey Curley in creating an indigenous ABCD. Hannah is aware of this. That's cool. A few of us on the call, community developers in Halifax, Nova Scotia, where I want to learn about ideas for connecting neighbors, people connecting stories. There's so many of these. These are great, guys.
And what does ABCD look like in the virtual world? Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
We'll encourage you to keep reading through those in the chat feature as you see them. There's some really cool things that people are sharing there, and can continue to do so as well, to share those things in that space. We're coming up on our first action step that we'd like you to take. And so our whole thing is about ABCD and neighboring with the actual neighbors you live by. And because this is not a conference, but an unconference, we are all actually at home, which is really unique. And so you actually could have the opportunity to see your actual literal neighbor. And so we're going to post the action into the chat window that we'd like you to take during this next moment. And basically what we'd like you to do is, Matt just posted it in the chat window there, gather supplies. We'd like you to find paper and writing utensil. It can be just any blank piece of paper and any writing utensil you'd like. And if you're able to, we'd like you to move to a place where you can actually see your neighbor's home. If you can stay there for the rest of the call, that would be awesome. If you can't do that, it's totally fine. At least take a moment to stand up and go out into your hallway if you're in an apartment complex, or onto your front porch if your house is like mine, or if you're on a farm, maybe you got to run to the end of the block or the end of the driveway before you could see your neighbors. But go to a space where you can actually see where your neighbors live. And I'm going to give you about a 3 to 4 minute banjo tune so that you can do this activity, and find a piece of paper, something you can write with, and see if you can get where you can actually observe the place in your home where you can see your neighbors. So we'll take a minute to take that break, and because it's banjo time, that means it's action time. So go ahead and get to it. right. I loved that because I could literally see people moving. Like I can see people's front porches now. That's really awesome and exciting to me. So thank you for successfully completing your first banjo break and moving to a place where you can see your neighbors. Matt, you want to introduce our first question there about culture?
Sure. So one of the things that we really appreciate about ABCD, and in particular the teaching of John McKnight, is his understanding of culture. And what he's shared with us is the culture is the way that people have learned through time to survive together in a place. So I'll say that again. So culture is a way that people have learned through time to survive together in a place. And I know for me, like given the pandemic, that's been a question that has had a lot more meaning for me. How have we on my block, have we come together in order to watch out for one another, to guard each other's health, and to survive? So what we want for you to do is to think about the culture on your block. Maybe it's the story that you find yourself often telling about your block, the time that neighbors came together, the time that folks worked together. What was, some way that the block held each other in a difficult season. So as you think about that, think about how the people on your block live together. And we also want to acknowledge that the answers can be positive or negative. So this is it's an observation activity to notice what that culture is. So I actually give you a couple of minutes to think about that. Adam's so excited, he's immediately reaching for the banjo. But yeah, take some time to think about the stories that you tell about your block and the culture on your block. Yeah, so Debbie De Palma shared, and this is exactly the kind of story, right, that we want to be thinking about. We had a memorial service for an elderly neighbor, planted a tree for him, and his partner brought out his ashes and buried them at the base of the tree. Debbie, that's very similar to an experience that I had on my block, and a story that I love to tell, because we have one neighbor who was beloved to all of us who passed away. And we invited his family to join us for a block potluck, which was one of his favorite activities. And they came, and we shared food, but we also shared stories about him and how he had touched our lives. And it was one of those moments that really revealed for me the culture of my block and why I love living on my block, and I care so much about the people around me. So yeah, so thank you for posting that. What we'd like to do is actually invite you into breakout rooms again, so that you can share with each other what the stories and the culture is of your block. And again, I would just reiterate, it doesn't have to be positive. If you feel like you're on a block where people are very separated and isolated, that's okay. That's part of this work. And so with that being said, we're going to have you move back into the same breakout groups as before. So you'll already know those folks and have a chance to visit with each other.
Christopher, could you add Carol to that breakout room 6? You're muted.
Sorry. I added both Susan and Carol, so we're good.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah, I think that should even things out pretty well.
Hanging back. It's a cool group. Richard, who's Richard from Wichita? Podcast I hadn't heard.
Yeah, he lives in a neighborhood just near ours. He has a lot of similar interests as we do.
Yeah.
So we
very
seems
engaged
cool.
civically.
Yeah.
So what was he on the podcast for?
Well, he does this. So the city does this thing where they put out like people who are in danger of receiving code enforcement violations, and then neighbors can go and support them and like help them clear their yard. Usually it's something like clear your yard of stuff. And Richard is just like the most willing person to go do that stuff. So that's what we had him on to kind of share that story.
Okay, cool. Thanks. I was just like, oh, yeah. Yeah. They were wanting to ask me a lot of questions as staff. So I just thought, I'm just not going to go. Just going to hang.
Oh.
Not that that's a bad thing, but I just thought, oh, I just want them to talk to each other. So I'm hanging back and chilling.
That's cool. Yes. What kind of questions were they asking? Is there something more?
Well, they asked what my role was, and I said the church. So they just she was wanting to know. I'm like, well, it's on the webpage, but two of them work with housing and homelessness. So they were getting to share, some resources. Yeah, it seemed really, one was in Florida and the other was, I'm so good at geography. Not Florida. Baltimore? yeah, Baltimore. That's where she was from. So they were just in such different, parts of the world. And Richard, so it's kind of cool. I thought it was
I mean,
jump back in.
It's not often that you get an audience of like 40 people that are clearly directly aligned with things that you really love to do.
Right. You guys are off to a great start, by the way. Good stuff. It was so very welcoming and good. Great opening.
You're so encouraging, Karen. I
was.
I don't know. There's somebody, that one woman on there, she continues to say, the banjo is awesome. Yes, he's playing again. So I'm happy.
In the chat? What?
Just keep playing.
Yeah.
Someone was knocking on my door. Literally, someone was knocking on the door and Luke was still here. So he went and he said, I don't know, I think he was selling something. And then he drove away on a Segway.
Whoa.
What in Madrid? Isn't that hilarious? He said, I want his job. I don't know what he does, but I want his job.
That's pretty funny.
Isn't that weird? So I don't know what I missed, but he said he was coming back. So we'll see. I might have missed a neighboring moment.
Right. It never fails.
Talking about neighboring. I can't come out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It is crazy. When you asked them to put that stuff in the chat window, Matt, they went nuts.
They
exploded.
real nuts.
Yeah,
absorb
that is
all
the
that
only
later.
downside. Yeah, if you have this many people, the chat just scrolls too fast. But
Right. Even if
I
you
do
message
think-
someone privately, you can't find it.
I do think we should say, yeah, put it in the chat window and let's have one or two unmute and share.
yeah, I mean, do you want them to have like put up a hand and we
Yeah.
call on
that's a
them?
good
Because that's
idea.
the only
And then they
bad
call.
thing. It's like
Yeah,
two people
that's a great
unmute at the
idea.
same time. Okay, we can do that. Because I do want to hear their voices.
I know. It's so weird leading via Zoom.
Yeah,
Like so close to being a real community,
and yet so far away.
yet so far away.
I mean, it really is, right? It's like,
Mhm.
thankful for it, but yeah. How long have they been in? Does anybody know? I think it's been like 3 or 4 minutes.
Darn, I keep forgetting to look. I wish
think
it
it
was
was
like
about
it was,
1:37.
Christopher.
I know. It's true. I wish they had like I'd be a handy little like thing they could add to just the
That
breakout
would be.
thing
Yeah.
because it shows you all the rooms, but it'd be nice to show how long they've been in. But
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know.
I would say give them a couple more minutes.
2-minute warning.
I could imagine. Well, I would say let's go to like 1:45.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I'll send that in a few.
because these stories may be more involved and
Yeah.
And are there 3 or 4 in most groups? 4?
There are 4 in almost
Except
all of the
mine.
groups, but 2 actually. Actually 3, because the people that are on our screen that haven't joined, including you, Karen, including you.
Oh, they were talking about wanting to exchange contact information. Is there a way after this call or like by an email, if you're willing to share contact information?
For like they want our contact information?
Well, like they were wanting each other's, but and maybe they make that happen through the email, but just wonder if there's a call to say, hey, if you want to share it with the group, how would you do that?
If they wanted each other's, I would just privately chat whoever you're doing. But then we can share ours. Maybe it wouldn't be hurtful to add. I mean, we could just share the website, I guess, and they can find all of our stuff. But
I think they were just wanting to have access to each other's too.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
It would be nice. I'd feel bad just like sending out everybody's email address though.
Right. Well, I was just thinking, like, wonder if you could say, hey, if you're willing to share your information, you can respond to mail or something with it or something.
Did you see Joel in this group's message that he's been listening to the podcast?
Yeah.
I did see that.
Pretty awesome. He also signed up for the Gappers yesterday. So
where is he
wow.
from?
I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't stalked him or anything, but
Yet.
not yet. That's right. Yeah, it was cool. After I sent him a message about it, he messaged me privately and was like, I do a bunch of podcast editing myself. You guys do a great job. And it was cool.
That's nice.
Wow.
Yeah, it was legit. So.
Oh, he's from Berwick, Nova Scotia.
Damn.
What a weird deal.
Such a wide audience.
That is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really is. Okay. So what we got next here?
You guys ready for me to?
Back. So we should give them some space to share, right? Either in the chat or they can wave a hand.
Right.
Or do we want to move on?
Let's give them space to share. I think we got time.
Yeah. So if they'd like to share a little bit about the culture of their block, either through a story or they could either post it or wave a hand and we'll call on them.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Okay.
You guys ready for me to start sending them back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can come on in.
Here they come.
So Adam, I mean, I think as people are regathering, it's worth asking, do you have enough songs for every banjo break?
I mean, I don't play the banjo plays me. So I can ask the banjo how many songs are in it, but I think it's an infinite resource. So.
Okay, well, I'm sorry I asked, but okay, thanks. That was a classic answer.
Also, people are definitely going to go listen to the podcast because it's just full of banjo humor. You guys are going to love it.
Oh, man. Okay, well, it looks like we're just about all back. And, as you guys were gone, we were kind of processing. We really want to hear some of your stories and hear a little bit about the culture on your block. So one option is if you'd like to put something into the chat, you could do that. But also, if you'd be willing to share, we would love to hear your voices. And so I don't know if you want to wave a hand, there's the little reaction button and you can put up a hand if you'd like to share something kind of like that. And we'll try to, between all of us, we'll try to keep our eyes peeled, and if you'd be willing to share, we would love to hear your voices.
Joel's promoting our podcast for us, and that's very kind. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Joel.
And it looks like Richard has a story he's willing to share. Richard, you want to unmute yourself and share?
Sure. So I've been living in my neighborhood for about a year and a half, and it's working class people. We don't mingle much. There hasn't been any kind of group gathering, but there are highs. We wave, and I do know the people on either side of me, and a girl 2 doors down, and I've introduced myself to the people across the street. So there's a pretty good feeling in the neighborhood. There's not much in the way of like the bad neighbor, but I brought this up in my private group, and it's something that maybe we can touch on. But the question is, how do we carry out this mission of meeting neighbors and building rapport when the stark reality is that today there are people that hold beliefs about other people that are just counterproductive to that mission? And how does one hold racist or homophobic or xenophobic ideas? But maybe that's one of the reasons why neighbors don't mingle, is because they're afraid of encountering some of those things in their neighbors. I always try to keep the subject to very like street oriented, like, this light seems like we could use another light, things like that. But that's a challenge, and it's something that scares me, frankly, and sort of works against my willingness to go out into my block and be more active in meeting people and things. So
yeah,
that's all.
Yeah,
thanks for sharing that, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe one more if anybody's willing.
Hello, I'm Patrick from Appleton, Wisconsin.
Hello,
Yeah,
Patrick.
go ahead.
I've been lucky to live on this block for off and on for the last 70 plus years. So I know pretty much all my neighbors on my block. I live on a little dead end street. We call it an island of tranquility. And when anybody's out in the yard and I see them, I make it a point to just go over and say hi and chat them up about what they're up to, whether they're raking leaves, cutting the lawn, shoveling the sidewalk, whatever it might be, and ask them what their favorite coffee is, because I'm a coffee fanatic. And that always gets into a conversation when it comes to coffee, because everything's better with coffee.
That's great. Yes. Good deal. Let's see, we got one more. Is it Sadie or Sadie?
Hi, it's Sadie.
Sadie, yeah, sure.
Sadie. Yes, thanks. Yeah, I live I'm from a rural community, but at the moment I'm staying in a suburb. And, it's a suburb of mixed, black and white suburb. And in most instances, people keep to their homes, come back to work, go straight in your own home, and walls around homes. So we literally used not to see each other, though we've got a neighborhood watch group. And since the pandemic, the neighborhood watch group has been, changed into, it just changed into an information sharing chat group, and it has grown. And me coming from the rural areas, I brought my rurality into the suburb, and I started, calling people to come and get some, vegetables, come and harvest basil from my place. And I started meeting people that I never met before, and we started, talking. I'm selling masks, and, I go house to house to say, selling masks, so people are beginning to come out, and we are now beginning to engage as a collective, though we don't really meet as, in a forum or whatever, but we chat, we stop now to greet each other. You want to know how the other person is doing, and we are busy now. We are looking after each other, in terms of knowing whether people have got enough stock, and what do they need, and what do you have, and how can we share. So we see lots of opportunity from the saying that says, behind every dark cloud there's a silver lining. There are lots of opportunities that came with this pandemic, which we would never have, used before.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Powerful.
So these are all great examples, and you guys clearly already been primed to do this kind of work, so because your answers are deep and insightful and the kind of stuff we love to hear. So one of the ways that we think of neighboring, which again we just stole from John McKnight, most of our things we just tried to steal from him. So neighboring is one of our goals in neighboring is to cultivate a culture of we in our neighborhood, and that happens through friendship and action. And those things go together, friendship and action. And really, they're strongest when they're paired together, right? And so I remember John when we learned this from John, and he told us, I can have a neighbor who I don't really want to be friends with help me jump my car. You know what I mean? That's action. And I also have neighbors who maybe they don't know how to jump a car, but I have an affinity for them in a friendly way. And so we have both of those on our block. We have people who we're more connected to through a friendship, and then people who maybe they're just really more action oriented. And it's not that we're enemies or something, but there's not a deep level of relationship there. And both of those things are good. And when they're combined, they can really create power and momentum within a community. And so we have a tool that we use to help people seek those things out on their block. It is a tool that we didn't steal from John McKnight. We stole it instead from Howard Lawrence. So no original ideas here. So hope you weren't coming for those. But it's a block map. It's a simple tool that if you've been in ABCD much, you may have experience with. I just put in the chat window a downloadable version of the one that we use. It's a 2-page document, and on one page it has instructions, And on the back page, it just simply has a bunch of blocks. And we ask you at the beginning to get a piece of paper and a pencil. And the reason is because we want you to actually create a block map during this session. And so we like to keep it, we like people to think about the 8 front doors closest to theirs. And the reason is because I think scale is really important when you're doing neighboring, because when we first started this, we went out and we interviewed like 150 people in our neighborhood. And on our block, everybody, we were able to point to, that's my house right there, I'm your neighbor. And people were willing to have a conversation with us. When we would get even 1 or 2 blocks away, people became more suspicious of us all of a sudden. And geography plays an important part in the way that we're able to connect with our neighbor. And so we like to keep it really small. And we like to think of just the 8 front doors closest to your own, because that means it's really doable. This is a very doable task. We all have people who live closest to us, and we all can think of who that is. So on your piece of paper, make 8 boxes and think about the homes that are closest to your own, right? It may be, there you go, Matt's gotten, oh, that's a beautiful example, Matt.
Thank you. I spent a lot of time on this. I literally did it while you were talking. I don't know what you said, Adam, but here's mine.
It's good. That's what we're looking for. We like this to be simple stuff. And in those boxes, then I want you to think about who the person is, or who the people, what the homes are that are in that area. You may not know the names of those people yet, right? And so it may be that you're saying, okay, well, that's the blue house. That's the guy with the motorcycle. That one I know, that's Mary. And just think, and it could be that like in Matt's house, Matt and I live on the same block, and his 8 front doors, because he has an alley behind him. So some of them are right behind his house, and some of them are in front or beside. I have a river behind my house, so there's nobody who lives there. And so I have on the side and in front of me. So whatever geography makes sense for you, put those homes in your block map. So we want you to do these 3 things. And as we do, I'm going to put this in your chat window. Oops. The kind of first 3 steps of this. So first, identify those homes. Next, write down as many names, actual first names, not like, oh, that's the guy who mows his yard all the time, mower guy, that's not the name of your neighbor. So who is the actual names that you know? And then any skills or interest of your neighbors that you may know. And this is the interesting thing. You may know their skills, but you may not know their name, right? So you may know the neighbor across the street is a great gardener because you can see their garden, even if you don't know their name. The map it's the Dropbox link that's in the chat. I'll post it again down below so it's refreshed in the chat. Oh, I see what I did. Hold on. I sent a group text, but I only sent it to one person because I was privately chatting. Okay, there we go. So those are the questions that we'd like you to send. And while you're working on that, I've got another banjo tune for you. Okay, so hopefully you were able to fill out your block map a little bit. And as we come back, Christopher, will you launch the poll for us? We'd like you to share with us as we kind of start a conversation again, how many people in your 8 front doors did you know their actual name? How many neighbors did you know by name? And if you could, on the poll, make your selection. How many people did you know by name? This is an anonymous poll, so it's okay if you don't know any. No judgment here.
That's right. Also, I'd just like to point out that neighbors is spelled correctly in this poll.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
Found comment there.
Our Canadian friend Hannah set it up. And so it's got the appropriate U. I'm not sure Canadians have ever been to our website actually, because it's spelled wrong. So.
Catherine would have.
Afraid you're right.
Okay.
Hmm.
So this is a good poll. I think this really illustrates, so when we do this work a lot. We will present with a group and we'll have them do a poll like this. And I would say most people who are not already aware of ABCD, and maybe you guys are a little more with it than some of the groups we're normally in, we usually get between 2 and 3. Usually people know between 2 to 3 neighbors by name. And you can see a big portion of the group right there. And then I do think there's this thing that happens where once you get started, it is a little bit of a domino effect. And so I'm not surprised to see that there is a big group that is at 8 or more as well. Because I do think once you get going, you do start to the connections happen naturally and you can't stop them. And it just ends up being, there's a lot of folks that you end up knowing. Matt, you want to do the yeah buts? Want to lead that?
Yeah, I do. So let's, we'll go ahead and end the poll. A little thing I've learned about Zoom is that sometimes it shows us only 87% have voted, but it may have been more. Wow. And so 8 wins. That's pretty exciting. If you're curious to see the results, that's the response that we got. And as Adam was saying, this is a pretty fair representation. It's just not uncommon for people to not know their neighbors. When we introduce this idea to folks, we've learned that people usually have some concerns. They have some pushback. And so we playfully nicknamed this the yeah but section. And the yeah buts are the yeah, I should get to know my neighbors, but there's this problem, right? Maybe I've had a negative run-in with the person, or you know, there's other obstacles or barriers, and those are real. And so we have found it's very helpful to spend some time just sharing in a group space like this what yeah buts are out there. And the truth is, we don't have answers and solutions to all of them, although together I bet we could come up with some great and creative ideas. So what I'd like for you to do is, again, either in the chat or if you'd like to wave a hand, I'd just like to hear from you as far as the yeah buts that you see when it comes to meeting neighbors. What are the obstacles that you see to getting to know the people that live closest to you? And I want to echo back to Richard's comment, right? Just the concern that there are neighbors who have really substantially different beliefs from me, and some even fear about having interactions with those folks. That's an excellent and completely fair example of a yeah, but. So, so we'll keep our eyes peeled if you'd like to wave a hand and share a yeah, but for you, or one that you can think of, or if you'd like to post it in the chat, I invite you to do that. Yeah, I'm too busy.
That one was a really good one for me until the pandemic. And then I was like, well, I got to come up with a new one. For me, it's always people don't make eye contact or turn away.
Mm-hmm. The folks right next door involved in some illegal things. Yes.
Safety. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We got a hand raised. Sadie.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the yeah, but it's, I might be infringing, in people's privacy, and some people like to be private, and knocking at their door might mean that you're disturbing their peace. So
yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I try to talk, they don't reciprocate. They look sketchy. Mm-hmm.
I've got a neighbor like that. Yeah.
Hey, don't talk about me like that, Adam. But they aren't friendly. Yeah, and then the pandemic, right? Social distancing and the feeling around those obstacles.
Yeah, I'm shy, worried that my same-gendered family will be ridiculed, exposed, or unsafe or rejected. That's a definite fear. I have been on my block for years and haven't met them. It's going to be awkward. Yep. Yeah. They never tuned their banjo. Yep, it's a good one.
So yeah, people who, like, I've waved or smiled but never get a response, and I've been here for 10 years. And then certainly crossing the racial line.
Yeah. These are really good, and definitely what we say about the yeah buts is that we don't have there's no way for us to like make that easier for you. Actually, one of the things that our founding belief as a nonprofit is that every person is gifted, and when we use our gifts, our community, we experience wholeness and our community grows stronger. And I know there's been many a times when I've been going to meet a neighbor and have had to really like use that as a mantra, because I'll be standing on a front porch of someone with a political sign who I disagree with, that I don't necessarily want to interact with in this moment. And I'll have to remind myself, every person is gifted. All people are gifted. There is a gift, there is a skill that this person has. And if I can connect with them on that and not maybe their yard sign, then it does help a lot. Yeah.
The other thing that I think is really helpful, particularly when we get into the yeah buts, is that while that's scary, and those are absolutely real concerns to carry, I always want to give people permission to start with the easier steps. So we don't have to start by going straight to the neighbor who's intimidating or scary. And I think that has helped me build up some momentum, just to be more intentional in reaching out to the neighbors that I'm not necessarily so afraid of. Helps me to understand how the conversation can go, and what can help me, right, to introduce myself. And part of that I think is really helpful, I always, well, whenever I'm introducing myself to a new neighbor, I take baked goods. I think baked goods is a great a great way to introduce ourselves. It's kind of a way of gesturing and saying, I'm coming in peace, right? I'm coming with a desire to build a bridge. And I find that people are generally powerless against baked goods. Even if they wanted to hate me, I feel like they just can't, because I just gave them a plate of cookies or some homemade bread. But also, I think too, it's been very helpful for us to think about the movement that we move from, being a stranger with this person to being an acquaintance, and then potentially moving to a place of deeper relationship. And that's significant for me because, especially thinking about neighbors that maybe I have different views about the world with. But if I can move from stranger to acquaintance first and just get to learn a little bit about, their work and their skills and the things that they're interested in, and they can get to know me a little bit better and start to see me as a person, then with time, we are able to have a conversation about something that may be more personal and more significant. Now, that's not always the option, but that has been my experience with one of my neighbors in particular. We just see the world differently. We didn't talk about that at first, but over the last, and we've been neighbors now for 7 years, and during that time, we've reached a point where we've been able to have arguments with each other. We've been able to name our disagreements, and yet we know we care about each other enough that we come back together and encourage each other. So, but that's taken years to build that level of relationship. But that's the gift of neighboring, I think, is that with time that really can be possible.
And we want you to, like, several people named safety, and we always encourage people to not do anything that causes you to feel unsafe. That's never go to a place and be like, well, these two white guys in Kansas, USA told me I need to be a good neighbor, so I'm going to go knock on their door. No, if you don't feel safe doing it, then trust your intuition on that and figure out a option that is maybe a little lower bar to cross. So, I thought I maybe saw a hand there, but did Debbie?
Yeah.
Did you have a hand? Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to just comment. I think, I've talked already about block parties, but I think there's something about when you have a block party and lots of people come and meet each other, there's something about interacting with your neighbors in the context of your other neighbors. A lot of the time, the people who are, going to be troublesome won't show up when they know there are a lot of people with goodwill and their kids around. And I've found that that's, I think, the best protection against neighbors who are going to be troublemakers or troublesome in some way, because it also gives you access to allies who, we had situations where, neighbors were nasty or did something nasty, and I had neighbors come and say, tell us how can we help, So I think meeting and interacting with neighbors in the context of other neighbors is a safe way to interact with your neighbors.
That's great. Thanks, Debbie. It's exactly right too. Yeah. The other resource that we've created that is a bit in response to the yeah buts around neighboring is what we call the 52 weeks of neighboring. And it's a weekly neighboring tip that we put out. I'm going to put it in the chat window now. And it's the next step of building your block map. And so the 52 weeks of neighboring is just a very practical, really concrete action step that you can take. We've been doing them once a week for, I think, 3 or 4 years now. And so there's a bunch of them in there. And you can scroll through and read many of them. In the last several months, we've been doing very pandemic specific neighboring tips, because there are a lot that neighboring does change a little bit in the midst of a global pandemic. And so you know, it still feels strange to even say that we're in a global pandemic, but it's true, especially for, you know, depending on where you are in the world, it may be more real for you right now or not. And so the 52 weeks neighboring has lots of options there that you can cycle through and reach some activities that feel authentic to you. Right. So part of it is finding, maybe baked goods is natural for Matt, but maybe that's not natural for you. What's natural for me is just, I'm on my front porch a lot. I love my front porch. It's one of my favorite places. And so that's a really natural way for me to connect with my neighbors, is just being present in that way. We do have some good things happening in the chat window, so I want to mention those. You want to do those, Matt?
Yeah. Sorry, scrolling in the chat is so challenging.
It's terrible.
It's like super fast, but yeah. So Chris shared a neighbor that I don't know, and I have a snow shoveling rivalry going on. I love this, where we see who can get out and shovel the other's front sidewalk first. We're friendly, but we've never chatted, and we don't know much about one another. But he recently fixed the fence, and I think deserves some insert COVID-19 era gift and a hello from me. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
And it's, once we become attentive to neighboring and we really watch for those things, I think then they start to spring up around us, which is cool. Also, Jess Pop's comment is just beautiful. So I think the philosophy around listening to understand and entering a space of curiosity are crucial for relationship building with folks who have different political views, for instance. Sometimes when you dive below the surface and get to understand people's values, there's more alignment than originally meets the eye, and sometimes not, which is true. Yeah. But it's really eye-opening. I mean, I've been surprised at things that I assumed about my neighbors. And then after I got to know them better, I realized it was not a true assumption.
Yeah.
But I only learned that by building those relationships and being curious. So
right. So this next action step that we're going to ask you to do is to make, I want you to make a little commitment to yourself to really do something. And Chris has just given us a great example of what that's like. And so thanks, Chris, for role modeling what we'd like people to do. We want you to make a plan of how you might actually meet a neighbor this week. So I'm putting, again, the 52 weeks of neighboring. You can look through those, or you can come up with them. There's no rocket science to this, people. It's taking baked goods to your neighbors is not an original idea of the neighboring movement. So feel free to think of something very tangible that you could do to meet a neighbor this week. Right? Something very tangible you could do to meet a neighbor this week. We'll give you a couple minutes to listen to some banjo songs while you think of that. And then we're going to put you into breakout rooms so you can share with somebody what you might do. All right. So I think a couple times through Red Hair Boy is enough time to give you guys an opportunity to come up with some great ideas. And so Christopher, will you send them into their groups again? And what we'd like you to do in your groups is to share with the people in your groups what's a tangible idea that you could do this week to meet one of your neighbors. Patrick, we sent everybody into breakout rooms. You're welcome to stay here too. So
I just sent out the link. So
oh, okay. Looks like
there was some
yeah,
mixing and matching going on.
that's cool.
Some people dropped, so I was trying to make sure.
Oh, right. Sure. Let's see. I was thinking check in again, and then do you want to do the Funston story after that?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah. My energy is running low.
Right.
So
I know hosting these things is exhausting.
Yeah. I mean, it would be in person too, but it's extra exhausting, I think, on Zoom.
And I think we're doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I do too.
This is super interactive. It's like, yeah, it's got banjos going like crazy.
Oh my God.
I should tune down. Actually, I may play a song in different key next time. So,
oh my.
Oh, I don't know if we have another time actually.
Oh gosh. Well, you could definitely give them one more, because we should give them a couple minutes to think about like main takeaway, favorite thing, like, and they could maybe post that in the chat for the harvest.
Yeah.
So
For
I've got that at the very end.
Yeah. Okay, cool. One more banjo break. Gotta get some whiskey before breakfast going.
Yes. It's my life motto. Are you gonna, let's see, do we need to talk about the 3 questions?
No, let's just, I think we can,
I think these folks know that content well. I mean, we could just say,
I think let's just share the Funston story, and I'll share through the slides with the pictures, but you guys should interrupt and jump in if you have, because I mean, I'm sharing through my perspective, and you guys really lived it more than I did. And so, yeah, but.
okay. So we share the Funston story and then move to reflection time.
Yep.
And then post, and then.
And the goal of that Funston story will be to say, like, so what happens if you do this for a long time? Like, what happens if you actually meet your neighbors over a long period of time? What kind of like results does it get you in your community?
Yeah. Okay. I forgot to pay attention to the time.
Yeah, it was about 2:22, I think.
Okay.
Also, just as a side note, Matt, Catherine said she's feeling a little better.
Catherine not feeling well?
Yeah, she started feeling queasy and stuff before lunch. But...
Also, I forgot to tell you guys, Trey and Alicia are staying the night at my house again tonight and tomorrow night.
Oh my gosh. Well, you told me that. It's okay, yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's
Because
that's today's Wednesday. Wow.
Yeah, so it's crazy. It's a crazy week here at the Barlow Thompsons. Also, Ashley's at has a funeral that she got this week too. On top of that, so the funeral is not till next week, but she's meeting with the family actually. I think right now.
Oh, okay.
You see that the songwriters thing is still happening, Adam?
Oh, I did not see that.
Hilariously. I mean, none of the participants know, but there's a Facebook post about it, so.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Did your group already finish chatting, Lydia?
I did.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and give them the close down 1 minute countdown there, Christopher?
Okay.
And guys, Darren had reiterated the question about how we can neighbor during COVID. So that might be something to talk about with the group, like neighboring with COVID when we're basically doing everything online. So.
Okay. Adam, do you want to share about the note that you passed out?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I was going to look for that episode of the podcast too.
Oh.
At the start of COVID?
Yeah. Whoops.
All right, I'm going to start sending everyone else back in.
Putting a link into a post that we did about neighboring during the pandemic. There is a podcast episode about it too. I'm not trying to find the link to right now, so.
I can work on that if you'd like to, Adam.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We'll kind of follow the same pattern that we did before about typing into the chat window some of the things that you might be willing to try. We'd love to hear what are you willing to try to meet a neighbor, or if you want to raise your hand and share, you're welcome to do that as well. We did have another question about how to do this neighboring work during the pandemic. There's in the chat window, I put a link to an article or a blog post that we wrote at the beginning of the pandemic, and has some examples of stuff that we've noticed from people online doing different things. One of the things in there is there's a letter. There was a friend of ours who wrote this letter and sent it to his neighbors, and then I I did the same thing and wrote a letter and sent it to my neighbors. And I mean, it was a very simple letter. It said, I know some of you well, some of you I know don't know as well. And I wanted you to know during this time that I'm thinking about you and we're here if you want or need support. And then I offered the phone number for myself and my wife and our email addresses as well. And just said, feel free to email or text or call if you would like to chat. And I was pretty amazed because, I mean, I know pretty much everybody on my block, but there are some people who, like, I don't know, we didn't have contact information for, right? And we'd never like texted or chatted with in that way. And there was there were 3 people who actually called me after I sent that note and said, I'm really glad you sent this out. I live alone. I am feeling very worried about this. One guy said, I don't even have family in the state. And so I don't feel like I have a good support network for this. And so it was really, we've been trying to intentionally neighbor for a while. And here's this guy on our own block who was feeling that way. So it was good to reach out in that way. Christopher just put a link to the podcast episode where we talk about some of those neighboring tips that are specific to the pandemic as well. Matt, anything that jump out to you in the comments that you wanted to share?
I mean, it's all glorious. So everything, it's breaking my heart to not be able to read just all of them. Yeah, I mean, there's some baked goods. I think one of the things, kind of a trend or pattern, is just being present. And we sometimes talk about design. So new homes are designed to encourage us to be in our backyards. And, we have beautiful back decks and fenced in backyards that are really nice. And that's no judgment on you if your home is like that. But sometimes it can help. How do we make our front yards also real comfortable to be in? And so something that I've done during the pandemic is actually redesigned our front yard. And now we have chairs out there, and try to spend a little bit of, probably 3 or 4 nights a week just sitting in the front yard so that neighbors can walk by and visit. And some of you have named that. People are out and about. So it's pretty cool. If we're just present, oftentimes those connections can happen.
Yeah.
That's
great. Yes.
Oh, porch nights. Count me in. I'm in.
Speaking my language, Jody. Yeah. We call them crafternoons. On Fridays at 3:00, we have crafternoons. So, yeah.
And great. I will say, part of it too, like that kind of front yard interaction, for me, I'm learning that I also have to be ready to set the boundaries with neighbors. So some of my neighbors aren't concerned about keeping social distance, being 6 feet away. And it's really hard for me. I'm a person who's just real easygoing. So I'm practicing just telling my neighbors as they approach, like, hey, I'm really glad to see you. And we are practicing social distancing. So to make sure that we're clear about that. But depending on where you are, you may be in different scenarios with that. So
great. These are awesome. I hope you all really go do these things. I mean, part of what we love, one of our kind of like part of the culture of the neighboring movement is that we want to be as practical as we can be with our stuff. And so we really love moving people to action. So if you go do some of these things, please let us know. Like, send us an email, contact us through Facebook. We want to hear about what you did, even if it wasn't a success and kind of like the typical understanding of that word. Failure is just data, and we learn a lot from when we go try, even if it doesn't work super well. So please do let us know about what you find. That's great. So to the next step for us on the call is we wanted to share how neighboring then with these individual neighbor to neighbor relationships then turn into bigger activity or connections within the community, right? And so we wanted to share a story that we've experienced in our neighborhood around a community garden. And so gardening is, I think, a really beautiful metaphor for how neighborhoods and communities grow. And I really love gardening as a metaphor. I don't know that I actually love actual gardens because they're just a ton of work. Like it's super hard. I grow a garden every spring and I kill a garden every summer. That's kind of how I go about my gardening. And our neighborhood association, which we are pretty deeply involved with, a couple of years ago, somebody reached out to us and asked us if we would. It was a cell phone company, and they were going to put a cell phone tower on a vacant lot in our neighborhood. And to be honest, I was pretty skeptical of the idea because community gardens are really hard. And what they wanted us to do was take the rest of the lot and turn it into a big community garden. They would use the spot for the tower, and the rest of the lot we would use as a community garden. So I was pretty skeptical of the idea, and I became even more skeptical as they showed us the lot. And so I'm going to share my screen with you all and show you, this is the lot. It's on a main road in our neighborhood, a busy road, and in Wichita, it's called Broadway, and Broadway is the place where people know in Wichita where you can buy drugs and other illicit behavior, right? So it's known for its negative things, not its assets. And honestly, when I looked at the lot and they said, hey, do you want to build a community garden here? I only saw the negative things, right? I was like, there's a lot of weeds in that soil. And I know that this is a lot that has a lot of foot traffic and people who are around it. But luckily, the thing about neighboring is that neighboring is about connecting with people in your community to learn their skills and their interest. And our neighbor, Catherine, she is really good at gardening and she had a vision for it. And so she reached out to another nonprofit in the neighborhood that does, they have a Garden Works program where they hire teenagers to do gardening that then is sold at farmers markets and through a CSA where they share boxes with people who are part of a subscription. Catherine also reached out to a neighbor named Ruben, and Ruben is a fence builder. And so Ruben made a fence around the perimeter of the property so that we could start the garden work. And it was, pretty amazing connection. We had met Ruben 2 years earlier. And we did a little skills inventory with him, and he said that he could build fences. And he sat on our asset map pretty much without us reaching out to him for about 2 years. And then we went and we said, okay, we need a fence. Who do we know who builds fences? Matt pulled that card out, gave him a call. Ruben's a really cool guy. And not only did he build a fence for us, we reconnected with him, and we really are lucky to know him. But we still had this problem of the soil was terrible. I mean, this is a commercial lot. It's not a good lot. And we reached out to another neighbor. Her name is Lauren. She lives 2 blocks north of us and works with the folks who hire teenagers to do gardening. And Lauren had this idea. She had heard about another garden on a lot like this. And what they did was they covered the lot in cardboard and mulch 2 feet deep. 2 feet, right, guys?
1 foot. We'll say okay. 1 foot. It's
1 foot deep. I like to exaggerate a little. 2 feet deep and 10 feet deep of mulch and cardboard. And then you just leave it for 2 years. You just leave it alone for 2 years to let the soil grow. And for me, that seemed crazy. And still, honestly, I think it seems a little crazy that for 2 years, we won't grow anything but dirt. But I wasn't in charge, thankfully. And so I went along with the plan. Lauren had a connection to a group that does tree work in the area. And they were willing to dump giant mountains of mulch on the lot. We had a connection to a school who brought kids over who would help spread the mulch. The little guy in the green jumping off the mountain, that's my son. We had community work days where we would reach out into the neighborhood and we told neighbors about what was going on. And then those neighbors, some of them came to the work day. One of them had access to some heavy equipment and so was able to help us spread the mulch with a little more efficiency and flatten the ground out a little bit, which was really great. And we, for a long time, just spent our effort moving this mulch around, getting it all set up until it was covered across the whole place. And then we also got the city of our local government, our city, involved, not maybe in the way we wanted to, and they started writing us violation warnings. And the reason was because we were trying to grow hugel beds. Is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hugel beds. Yeah.
Hugel beds. Hugel beds. When you go online, this is what a hugel bed looks like. It's, you take organic tree matter, you put it into a big pile, and then you plant directly into it. Here's what it looks like in real life, right? Not the same. It's not real attractive at first.
There we go.
And what happened was neighbors saw all that and they started complaining to the city, and the city sent a violation to us because we had made this big mess on the lot. Now, my first response was to be defensive and be like, we're trying to better the neighborhood and they don't even care. Like, what's wrong with these people? But luckily, Christopher on our team was able to use a much calmer voice and reach out to the city and build relationship with them, explain what we were doing. And that relationship grew. So now that we have another connection at city, and we know our code enforcer on a first name basis because of that work. We spent time in that garden working with people who are convicted felons, and people who are executives in professional settings, people who are wealthy, people who are poor, young and old. And all of these people are coming together in this garden around this kind of common purpose of building, not even plants, of building soil. That's what they're really working on, is building soil. And it's been a year. And in that year, we've not grown a single plant. We've only tended to the soil. And I gotta tell you, it is beautiful what the connections have come out of that, right? It is nutrient rich. It is exciting to think about the future, because we've been thinking about the soil and the relationships of the community around it. I feel like no matter what we plant there, it's going to grow in beautiful ways. And for me, neighboring is exactly the same kind of thing. When I am reaching out to my neighbors, I'm tending to the soil so that we can build associations with each other. And then when we have a common interest or common purpose that we want to act upon, that plant will grow and we'll be able to do it easily. So that's a little example in our life of how this moves from just interacting with your neighbor to a much bigger and broader picture. Any reflections that I missed from the neighboring movement team on that story?
I think I would just echo that if it was just up to us, we would have said no, or we would have said yes and done a terrible job. And that it really is the community together. It's these individuals and their passion and skills that make this possible and make it so beautiful. So yeah, it's just, to me, it's a weekly reminder. And even now, like maintaining the lot, we take turns. We take turns with different tasks. So Christopher mows, one of our neighbors picks up trash, another neighbor stops by and works on pulling weeds, and even at that level, right? But it's people coming together. So, and Joel's right, it's a long-term perspective. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're kind of closing in on the end of our time. And one of the things that we have committed to as part of the Unconference is having some space to harvest insights, learnings, things that you want to take with you from this time, maybe questions that are lingering. So what I'd like to do, I'd like to give you some more time, a couple of minutes just to reflect on the ground that we've covered, no pun intended, over the last hour and 45 minutes. And I just want to invite you to think about a key takeaway insight or action, and I'll post this into the chat, that you're taking with you from today's conversation. I'd like for you to think about that, and then I would love for you to post it into the chat so that it's there for us to take and pass on to the rest of the folks that are part of the unconference. So, so we'll give you a couple minutes just to consider, what are you taking with you from this time? And of course, it's also an excuse for Adam to play the banjo. So, so we'll give you a couple minutes for that, and then we'll regroup and wrap up.
And we'll make it a quick one. We do have to end the call at 3:55 because there's another session that will be using the same link. So that's just FYI. So 3:55, or I'm sorry, it's 2:55 in Central Time. It's 3:55 if you're in Hannah's time. I'm not going to cover it for everybody. 2:55 Central Time. Okay, we've got so many good chats rolling in that it was so inspiring I even stopped playing banjo for it. So I hope you're reading some of these if you haven't started already. I'll just read a few of them out though as we're going. So it really doesn't take these huge actions to make a difference. Just being present and available to something can spark change and connection. I'm going to take everyone is gifted as a mantra when approaching my next neighborhood encounter and put my focus on them and their gifts. While inherently getting to know neighbors and building activity, engaged community is grounded in informal relationship building, there can still be a process of intentional action and steps. Central Neighborhood Appleton is achieving many of these issues shared here today. Thank you for all you're doing. Have a bit of good neighboring plan, but be adaptable and flexible, developing and implementing a plan to meet my neighbors. Such great ideas for actual neighbors were shared. So good brainstorming with everyone. Keep neighboring simple, and we can easily get too academic and lose sight of just how easy it is to connect. Start with small actions and go from there. Always point to connection. Take time and intention. In like anything that's difficult, it is worth it. I am because we are, as neighbor with or without the you, who wants to further and engage. I just have to start and can start small with friendly gestures, hellos, and presence. There are lots of, this isn't a thing to do, it's a way of life. Absolutely. We talk about that all the time. There are a lot of ways to reach out into neighbors. Some can be pretty low key, like putting a box of veggies from your garden with a sign, neighbors, help yourself. I really like the idea of asking groups to brainstorm the yeah buts. I think it's a great way to explore some of the limiting beliefs to gain perspective and barriers that may exist. I think practice helps us challenge and our thoughts and our biases in a work on our personal lives. Wow, these are so good.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get to all of them, but that was a really impressive list, and I'm super grateful for you all. I think before we go, we should just do a little round of like where to find stuff and how to connect with each other after this. So you can always locate us at neighboringmovement.org. We are most active on Facebook. We do have a Twitter account, but it's pretty much automated. There's not really anybody there very often. And then if you want to connect with someone on the group who you met and you're like, I really want to talk with that person again because they're doing something similar, or you want, just email me and I'd be happy to connect you through the email list. I'm not going to send everybody's email out, but if you have kind of someone in particular that you would like to meet with, you can. And I'm putting my email address in the window right now, adam@neighboringmovement.org. Also, if you do one of the actions that you just named today, please do let us know. I really am serious. Man, it would be cool to hear about the things that happened because of this call today. So, all right, we're out of time. So thank you all so much. And we look forward to maybe seeing you again in a digital space another time. So have a great week and we will talk to you later.
Thank you so much. That was incredible. To all of you, Matthew and Christopher, Karen, Lydia, Sydney, and Adam seems to be gone on mine, but thanks so much for that. It was a really great session and went really smoothly. So appreciate your time today, and I'll jump off, or I'll stop the recording, and then